Dolly Lenz, CEO of Dolly Lenz Real Estate, and Jenny Lenz, Managing Director of Dolly Lenz Real Estate. It is great to see you both.
Thank you so much.
So it's a new year.
Yep.
People are, the spring season's coming up. What are some of the trends, Dolly?
Well, what we're seeing is continued pressure on pricing, right? So something comes on the market, especially the entry level, and it's immediately picked up, sold, and that's continuing to put upward pressure on prices, right? Not such great news, but good for real estate, right? Because we need traction, otherwise nothing happens.
Right, and that's why home vacancies, right? It's my understanding, 38-year numbers.
Yes.
Right? Like, because the inventory just moves really quickly, and there's just not a lot of it.
Right.
Jenny?
Exactly.
Also, about 5 million millennials are turning 30 this year, which is definitely going to cause a lot more demand for entry-level homes, because 30 is about the time when you start thinking to buy. So that's really even further going to diminish supply, and we might see the lowest supply ever for homes in U.S. history.
I think it's interesting because a lot of the home builders have changed how they're building.
Yes.
They've stopped with the McMansions, right?
Yes.
And started building some smaller properties, and those quickly sell.
But they've told us that, you know what, we don't have as much a margin in those homes. We would build what we need to build if we could make money, but they can't. There's pressure on workers, right, the contractors. Everybody's making more money. There's pressure on supplies with the trade war in particular. So it's just expensive.
So much to consider here. So what's your advice to first-time home buyers? How many homes should they look at before they make an offer on a home? Is there
I think they should become experts in whatever market they're looking at. I would say look at every home you can, but at the same time, if you're really looking to buy this year, you're going to have to step up. Mortgage rates, as you said, are very low. They're at 3.64% for a 30-year fixed, and we actually spoke to Citi today, and we got a 3.5% very aggressive quote from them.
Yeah.
So,
imagine.
Mortgage rates are low, which is helpful. It's just getting that down payment that's the issue.
Okay, so be familiar, be an expert,
right.
But it's so hard because I fell in love with the very first apartment I walked into, right? So it's really...
It is emotional.
It is emotional, very
But we tell
much
people
so.
Don't fall in love. You can't.
You can't fall in love. And
if
don't show your card.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
If you're in love, don't let your heart rate go up.
This comes from the expert, the Ultimate Stratosphere Award. Dolly Lenz is the sole recipient of that award, having sold over $11 billion in properties. But when we talk about this, right? So you get out there, first-time home buyers, see a lot of homes. What about mortgages? What do you recommend? What about these jumbo mortgages? What kind of should we get the 30-year fixed? What kind of advice do you give?
In reality, most people don't need a 30-year fix, right? So the 10-year ARM, which, for example, Citi said they were offering a 2.75 right now. Right. Mm-hmm. That probably makes more sense than the 3.5, 30. But people like the comfort of the 30, even though they're only staying in the home now. 13 years versus 7 years that it's been. More pressure on supply. People are staying put.
They are. They really
very
are,
bad
right?
for supply. Very bad.
Tell me about the sweet spots. Where are the sweet spots?
Well, usually we say that, when there's seller fatigue is really when you should go in there. It's not really an area of the market or price. It's really someone needs to move either because they need to sell, they need the money, or they're just done with it. They're very wealthy. They're moving to LA. They want to sell their New York property. So you really do have to shop around.
And how is the New York market, the Florida market? Those are two of your specialties.
I mean, the New York market is good. It's not deep. So you're not getting 4 bidders for an apartment. So, if you're a seller, listen to the first bid because it may be your only bid.
Really?
Yeah, it's not a super frothy.
What about commercial real estate?
Commercial, well, there was just an overhaul of rental apartments and how they're going to be taxed and how they're going to be able to raise pricing in rentals if you own a rental building. Mm-hmm. So that market's down 20%. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the commercial market, look, there's so much money chasing so few assets, it holds it up, right? So the low interest rate environment raises all tides and boats.
You made an interesting point about if you have a bidder, really consider that bidder. Because there are a lot of regulations too when I'm making a bid, right? Whether it's a condo or a co-op or whatever, I have to have a certain amount of net worth too, right? And liquidity. What are some of the criteria for that?
Well, depending on the property, right? So in a very fancy building, we just sold an apartment at 965th. It's pretty much all cash. you have to have 10 times assets. So if you pay 10, you have to have $100 million net worth you have to show. So it really goes all over the place to the point where it's a condo and there are almost no requirements.
And especially in New York, there's not as much depth as there was because of the limit on SALT deductions, increase in mansion tax, increase in transfer tax. We have a lack of foreign buyers right now because of the trade war. So really,
I was going to ask that. I'm glad you brought that up. So fewer foreign buyers still.
Fewer foreign buyers. All of our buyers, I would say, are American. Hedge fund. You know,
right.
finance.
And I saw in the paper you have an exciting property on 80th Street on East 80th now. It's $4.88 million. So what are some of the things that when you're trying to sell it, right? What are some of the things you're looking for in a buyer?
Well, that really is a trophy property. That was Mario Bawada, the very famous designer's apartment. So we're getting actually a lot of interest in that property because because it's very special. But yeah, it's a very particular buyer.
Again, it's a tough co-op.
Yeah.
You know, it's a small building, 6 units. So people, you know, they're very cautious who they want as their neighbors. So all of that makes it more difficult.
When we look at the year ahead, what are some of the things you're worried about?
Well, certainly an interest rate spike, but we don't expect it. You know, people are now playing arbitrage. We were just talking about the house that sold for $94 million in Bel Air. The guy took a $58 million mortgage on that house. He has a $560,000 a month mortgage payment. So clearly he's paying arbitrage. He's taking the money from the mortgage.
He can make more than 3.5%.
Right.
Doing whatever he's doing in the stock market or
hedge fund or whatever he's doing.
Right.
And then what's the most exciting part of real estate for 2020?
I mean, I think everything's exciting but I guess that's how we feel about real estate.
This is what you do,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So to us, everything's exciting. A new building, a new trend in buildings.
And there's a lot of new buildings in New York, right?
You can't
buildings,
you kill yourself.
New amenity after amenity, a dog park. I know we love dogs.
Yes.
You know, everything you could possibly think of because the market's a little bit slower. Developers have definitely thought of new amenities to attract
the out-of-the-box stuff, right? So when it's tough, that's when people have to really think versus, we'll just do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you said, a lot of people just stay in their homes for many, many years.
Double the amount of time. That is so big, and I think it's so underreported. It is truly a huge trend because it doesn't pay to downsize. The people downsizing are finding I'm paying just as much money as I was in my comfortable home. Why am I doing that?
I've lived in for years.
I have a friend who did exactly that and sort of regret doing it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, it's great to see you both.
Too. Happy New Year.
Much success. All right. The Dolly Lenz, CEO of Dolly Lenz Real Estate, and Jenny Lenz, Managing Director of Dolly Lenz Real Estate. Great to see you both, and Happy New Year.